What kind of people don't you trust? In my work, literally everyone talks about everyone behind their back. I try not to get involved. Yeah. I don't trust anyone. Can be very toxic at times and uncomfortable. Some people are just too smooth. You can tell that whatever they're saying isn't entirely genuine. And it's clear that they want something from you, but unclear what happens if you give it to them. How they'll treat you, etc. I do not give anything to manipulative weirdos. People who always feel the need to play the victim in every situation. People who say my names 30 times in a sentence. I tell you what, Dan. That's a great idea, Dan. Why don't we do that, Dan? I'll call you Dan. Okay, Dan. Tells me that person took a sales course. A really outdated one that teaches the BS that the sweetest sound in the world is hearing your own name. People who always talk shit about other people. They do the same thing to you, so don't make the mistake of confiding in them. People who cut you off when you're talking and don't value your opinion. Basically shutting you down. People who refuse to say sorry when they've done wrong. Especially to children. People who lie. People who act and talk to you as if they're better than you. I have always been too trusting of everyone. I always believe there is good in every person. There isn't. You really have to learn and know them. Even when you think you do. You don't. Learned some hard lessons in the last handful of years. People who say trust me. People that can never take any personal responsibility for things they've done wrong. The ones who always say I'm just kidding all the time after being a cunt. Passive-aggressive people. People who constantly say they're a good person. People who talk about someone as soon as the person is gone. Hun bots. Any woman slinging an MLM business. Surprised haven't seen this, hypocrites. People who can't genuinely apologize or take accountability for something they've done. People who are unnecessarily rude. It's not hard to be nice. Even if you don't mean it. People who are overtly mean will have no hesitation to screw you over, and you know it's coming. Overly flirty people. Something just doesn't sit right with a guy or girl who constantly is giggling and laughing and touching everybody. Influencers. People that make politics their personality. Almost everyone. Trust is earned, not granted, unless you haven't been paying attention to the general behavior of people in the last 30 years. In the context of dating a man who starts calling you pet names right off the bat. Sir, we just met. Who the FK are you calling babe? People who wear underwear over pants. People who brag a lot or one-uppers. Narcissists. People who turn every conversation, especially ones that started out positive, into venting about their own problems and basically holding you verbally hostage. Encountered more of these types than I know how to count, and it's always a huge red flag. Liars. People who are too friendly. Bullshitters. I can detect them because I am a bullshitter, and you cannot bullshit a bullshitter. People whose smile never reaches their eyes. People who think you have to be super chatty and friendly with everyone and always in a positive mood. Loud. Very charismatic. Good-looking men. Overly religious people. And through hard-earned experience. Histrionic people. And our edit forgot one. People who don't like music. That ain't right. People who say believe me. People who are always smiling, even when they're clearly upset. Nothing wrong with being smiley. But if you're constantly smiling, especially during serious conversations or during conflict, that tells me you have very powerful emotions you're hiding from both me and yourself, and that they will likely erupt one day. People who mention God in first 5 minutes of conversation. People who overshare way too quickly, or those who are always the victim. Redditors. Salespeople. Kitchen sellers. Billionaires. People who are overly sweet, to the point it seems insincere. If they remind me of myself, they're probably reflecting my energy to deceive me. Ice cream truck drivers. Where are they getting those great treats from? They're never sold at the store. Something's up. Someone who I don't know that acts familiar with me, especially if they keep calling me chief. People that hate cats. People who secretly look through their partner's belongings. The kind that talk to me. Martyrs and name droppers. Fucking televangelists. Scum of the fucking earth. All of them. People. What a bunch of bastards. People who are constantly smiling and trying to touch you. I feel like most of these people have betrayed me or are secretly really mean in some way. People that hate animals. All of them. Plumbers who ask me if I like to sleep naked. People that trust unconditionally. People who are toxic just for the sole purpose of having attention. Anyone my dog doesn't like. TBH. Obviously religious people. I'm not talking about people with hijab, shtrimmel or other visual clues of religious people. I'm talking about those whose personality revolves around being a good religious person. Feels like they're horrible people who needs religion to absolve their crimes. People who get over familiar with others they've just met. Anyone who claims or implies that they're infallible. People who make a show of friendliness. People who lie easily. As of this afternoon, Russian mercenaries. I'm changing my Yelp review. Suspiciously tall men in trench coats who are looking to buy a fine automobile. The humankind. People who ask too many questions. The profession that has the highest rate of domestic violence. Google it. Any so-called professionals that have a high rate of alcoholism, beat, torment and murder their own families. How in the heck can anyone really trust them? No wonder they have such a low community support. Guess what? They also have an above-average rate for suicide. No surprise there. Right-wing nationalist Christians. Evangelicals. Law enforcement. Unless they prove otherwise. Salespeople at buy here pay here car lots. People who smile a lot but it never hits the eyes. People who don't like are mean or neglectful to animals. People who have no intellectual curiosity. Okay, I've listed enough. I'm sure there's more. Politicians. Lawyers. Salespeople. Government agencies. Catholic priests. Cartel members. Money-loving people. Hate groups. 40-year-old dudes who use excessive hair gel. Moralistic people. Those who categorize by right and wrong, allow righteousness to justify much harm. For instance, if they consider someone a bad person, now various harms are justified against that person. And there will be some innocence in that judgment. We are not objective observers. Especially as we're biased toward ourselves. And thus many harms that won't be seen as harms. The good and the righteous. That, to me, is frightening.